day 3 of Eating Disorder Awareness Week. So, basically, gonna start off with the quote again, which was, "They broke the wrong part of me. They broke my wings, but forgot that I had claws." And I just really like how, like, full-on badass that is, I guess. I don't know. So, today's video, I'm gonna sort of cover coping with refeeding. Now, I know everyone has a different process with this. Everyone's been through different things. These are just a few things that I personally have been through. And I'm going to touch on, you know, the physical process, pros and cons, and then how to deal with, like, your emotions afterwards. Again, like, I will probably look down because I'm trying to keep an eye on what I'm actually saying and making sure I'm covering it all. So all I will say is, get your medical professional to support you throughout your recovery, because it can be really difficult and you have to watch out for, like, refeeding syndrome and all of these other complications that you can get from coming back from this sort of illness. So overall, I would say don't let the actual process put you off of recovery, because it's inevitable. You know, there's two paths in eating disorders. Either you kill it and you get better and you fight, or it kills you. And I always used to have this mindset of, like, well, the lower I get, the less I have to come up by, because the less people will expect me to come up by. And that's just it's not true at all. It still means I'm still going to have to get to the same, like, healthy weight regardless. So I'm actually just postponing the inevitable, and it's giving my, I guess, like, my anorexia giving sort of a justification to the fact that it would lose more, if that makes any sense. So overall, the things that I went through in refeeding, and still am going through, because obviously I'm early refeeding currently. Pain. It hurts. It does hurt. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and say recovery is a walk in the park, because it hurts. It really, really does hurt. But don't let it put you off, because, you know, my GP, again, he's really good, and as he said, don't let it put you off as it being a pain that something's wrong. Like, it's not like, ouch, I've broken my wrist and that pain's like a bad pain. It's a pain that is supposed to be there. Like, it's okay for it to be there, because it's actually a good pain. It means that your body is recovering. You are unfortunately trying to refeed a stomach that is so small, or a body that has been through so much. Of course it's going to hurt. I suffered a lot with sweating. Like, sweating after food, I would get really, really hot and clammy, and I would get food babies, and I'd feel bruised. Like, my body would feel bruised underneath. I'd feel really nauseous. I suffered with constipation. I suffered with diarrhea. Water retention, don't let that put you off either, because your body will retain water initially. I still remember when I first went to my first weigh-in when I was about, must have been 17. So it wasn't my first weigh-in, I mean, like, the first weigh-in in recovery. And I was completely shook. I was like, oh my god, how has this happened? Like, this is so much weight. But then they had to explain to me that actually it was just water weight. And when I then went back again, it had actually come back down. And that was confusing, and it is confusing to understand with a disordered brain. But basically, your body retains the water initially because it's trying to fix things. All I will say as well is, don't think your figure's going to stay how it is in different phases of recovery, because you even out. It's I can't remember the name for it now, it's really going to annoy me. Weight redistribution, that's it. So your weight will change, it will go from different areas to different areas depending on sort of, you know, what's going on at the time. But yeah, I would say ignoring the fact that obviously it can be a painful process and it can be distressing and all of this. It's so important to remember that actually without doing these things, you're going to end up a lot worse and probably lose your life to these illnesses. I also got really panicky when my periods came back, because my brain just was like, that means you're fat. But actually it doesn't. It just means that you're fueling your body enough for your body to deem that okay, if that makes sense. So it's saying, all right, okay, well, if you were to carry a child now, I'm content that you wouldn't be, like, starving it. I guess, in a weird way. I'm not really sure how to explain that one. So there's one thing I disagree with that Cam's tried to ingrain in me was mindfulness with eating. Now, I hated the term mindfulness until I actually had a good experience with it at the short stay unit, where I learned about my emotions and about being mindful of my emotions. And one of my favourite ones was about a train. So if I was at a train station and I got on the wrong train, so I'm on this train of emotion and I have the choice to either get off at the next station and get on another train back and change my emotion, change my way of thought, or ride it out until the end of the line. And it was really important to me to understand that, and also understand that I have the right to feel what I want to feel, and it's okay to want to ride that train to the end and deal with that emotion. But in terms of mindfulness with eating, I didn't find it helpful to focus on what I was eating in terms of sitting down and savouring the taste and focusing on the textures and the chewing, all of that I was told to do, and it just seemed bizarre to me when it was something that I just wanted to be over with because I didn't enjoy it. So I do disagree with that. I don't think it's something that should be expected for you to be like mindful of yourself eating. I would say if anything, you need distractions. You need to be able to engage in conversation, ignore the fact that it's like a food situation. So engage in conversation, watch some telly, anything really that means that you're not fully focusing on what's happening in that situation, because it's really distressing to have to put that into your body when you've spent so long avoiding it, or you've got disordered eating around food anyway. So I would say that's quite a difficult one to do. And then in terms of emotions overall, it can get massively messed up. Like, you can get desperate in terms of how you feel. You can feel trapped, you can feel alone, you can feel confused and stressed and reliant and lost, and all of these different emotions that are really hard to deal with. And I never really knew of a way to describe what I went through in terms of feeling like this, but then we went to go and watch a film at the cinema at Christmas, and I cannot remember what it was called. It was the one with Emilia Clarke in, the Christmas one, and they always said look up, and I'd never really figured a way of explaining it, and people would always say to me like, what are you on about? When I'd be like, but look around you. Don't be afraid to look around you at the world that you would be leaving if you were to choose a different path, you know. Don't be afraid to look at birds or leaves or the sky and the clouds and think, wow, like, this is incredible, because it is. It's such an incredible place to be. Earth is insane. If you think of all of the things that happen, both good and bad, it's just, nature itself is such a good healer. In terms of, you know, I was told to stand outside with bare feet on the grass to ground myself. That was another phrase I hated, was grounding. But again, once I had a positive experience with it, it made more sense. But I'm not saying like that fixes everything. I'm not one of those people that's going to say, oh, well, go for a walk and it'll fix everything. Obviously, because I've dealt with mental illness, I know that's not the case. What I'm saying is, emotionally, it can be quite rewarding to put yourself in a situation where you're showing yourself what you would be losing, what you would be leaving behind should you continue on the self-destruct path. So that would be what I would say. And remember to yourself, like, remind yourself that the path leads the same way. Whether you think of it in terms of, oh, well, if I lose more, then it's less to put on. That's wrong. You know it's wrong, and at the end of the day, it leads to recovery. You know that eventually you're going to have to do it. Otherwise, you're going to die. So the path goes either way, that's exactly the same. You either get better or you don't. There's no in between at all. You'll always be down one of those paths, and it's down to you to turn direction and decide which path you want to walk down. But yeah, I'm sort of just wanted to touch on that because people don't really talk about refeeding, and I don't mind doing a more in-depth video if you want one. But that's my own personal experience with refeeding, and basically telling you it's okay to be in pain. It's okay to, you know, have food babies, to feel you will be bloated, but you won't wake up tomorrow morning as bloated as you were when you went to bed. Your body has to learn to process food again, and it's such a hard thing for it to do. and you've put your body through so much stress that it's definitely not going to be an easy road. It's not a walk in the park at all, but it's better than the inevitable. You start to realise the pain that you're actually in with starvation or malnutrition in comparison to the pain that you're in recovering. And the positive side of it being that recovery pain ends. It does end, like, it's not permanent. Pain from an eating disorder, both mentally, emotionally and physically, it doesn't end. It carries on until you sort of put your foot down, I guess. But yeah, this video is mainly about just my own journey with refeeding and telling you it's okay to be sweaty, to bloat, to suddenly gain a bunch of weight in the first week of recovery and then level out and perhaps lose a bit and then start gaining a little bit again, and you know, diarrhea and constipation and all of that. You're basically restarting your system. So don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of the process. Just ride it out, because it's an amazing one when you finish and realise, you know, how far your body's come and how far it's brought you. So the other thing, the final quote I'm going to use today is, remember how far you've come. Not just how far you've got left to go, not where you want to be, but you're not where you were. So you're not where you want to be, but you're not where you were. So focus on that. Don't focus on the here and the now, and just focus on the fact that each step you're making, you are making progress. You are doing so well. You know, you might not want to eat that single grape, but you eat it, and that's progress. Like, the pride that you can have, as well as the guilt, you need to focus on that pride, because it is incredible to feel that you are doing something right. As I say, like, I'm not going to sit here and say that everything's great with me at the minute, because, you know, you all know from previous videos that I have had a relapse and I haven't been great, and I am working with refeeding again. But basically, it's okay to struggle. It's okay to find these emotions hard. It's okay to need coping mechanisms. And it is really helpful, I think, coping mechanism wise, to be around nature in a world that you risk losing. It's worth doing yourself a bucket list or a challenge of like fear foods and all these different things, and make it fun. Make it fun. It doesn't have to be too much of a chore. Give yourself rewards, you know. When I get to this weight, I'm going to go to Alton Towers, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, because I'm allowed to then. Those sort of things. Give yourself that target of, you know what, here's a reward for what you've done, like making your bed as a kid or washing up. Here's your reward for doing something right, because it is, you are doing something right by refeeding yourself. So yeah, that's it for today, and let's do day 4 tomorrow.